All right, we're on, we're live?
Yep.
All right. This is the start of the Personnel Committee. It's October 8th, 2019. We'll start out with a roll call.
Alder Dorf here. Alder Corporal Stacks present.
Alder Galvin is here, and Alder LaFave is not here. I haven't heard anything about if she's coming or not, so, but we do have a quorum, so we'll proceed. Look for a motion on the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes.
Move to approve the minutes, or aren't you ready yet?
I'm just waiting to see these.
Oh.
Good, okay. Motion to...
Move to approve the minutes by Alder Dorf. Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. On to regular business. D, sub 1. Consideration with possible action on a request to fill the following replacement position and all subsequent vacancies resulting from internal transfers at the park maintenance worker position. Staff?
So you do have the position fill request in your packet. If you have any questions, we can answer that.
Does anyone have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Number 2, consideration with possible action to increase the dental insurance premium. Staff?
So I just handed to you the dental insurance plan. So you'll see in the first column on the left that they were asking for a 9% increase, but we made some changes, and you see them in red on the bottom. And all those changes are standard too. There's nothing above and beyond what other dental contracts have. So we're just asking for a 3% increase because with those changes involved.
So just fluoride once a year.
For dependent children up to age 17. Yeah, and they said that's standard.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Okay, but for older people, it's twice a year?
I don't know if that's changed or not. I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
All right.
I mean,
I
you'd think
thought-
prevention, I mean, that's prevention, so you
Yeah.
think that would make sense because that keeps your rates lower, usually.
I think it was for younger.
Which
individuals.
says
Yes,
for dependent children up to age 17, so that,
I think that's why,
Maybe
but
that
I'll
just
double
means-
check on that.
okay.
Okay, does anyone have any questions on any of this?
I think this is good.
And to add to, we will be providing 3 cleanings per year now. That is now standard for individuals. Yeah. I didn't know that either.
I never knew that either.
So I have to talk to my wife about that. She don't want
Yeah. I'm not going 3 times.
If you want to.
Okay, all right. Move to approve.
to- Second?
Are you, I think I still No, I'm fine.
All right.
Did you second? Oh, you
I'll
seconded?
second.
Yeah. Oh,
Just forgive
okay.
us. All those in favor?
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Alder Weary is not here. I'm willing to hold this until we get to the end.
I move that
in case he
we
shows up.
amend the agenda and hold it to the end of,
For number 3?
for
Yeah.
number 3, or is he not coming?
He won't be here tonight, so I did reach out to Alder Weary, and he's talked to Community and Economic Development about having 30 days to get information to him, so this will be, so I've asked that you hold it for him until the November meeting.
Okay.
So we have time to get the information for him.
So I move to hold until the November,
Which meeting in
Meeting.
November? Like,
Probably the first one, I think the 12th, I think.
November 12th.
okay,
I think.
Okay,
all right.
motion?
Yeah, oh, yes, second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes unanimously to hold that until November,
I think it's
first meeting in
12.
November.
Yeah, and we'll get the correct date.
Okay, consideration with possible action to create a City of Green Bay policy chapter 32 employee resource groups. Staff.
So there's a lot of information here. So I'll just go through our memo and the policy, and then if you have any questions, you can ask us about that.
Okay.
So, the city wants to leverage our diversity and foster inclusion to provide the best service for the public. And the goals we also have is to create a culture that we value the contributions from all of our employees and provide equal opportunity for professional development and career advancement. So that's why we're bringing forth employee resource groups. So What is an employee resource group? It's an employee group that has been formally recognized by the city. It's comprised of employee members who share a common background, focus areas, have interests, and/or goals. So we're hoping that the employee resource groups will create this type of culture for the city. So that's kind of the why behind it. So if you look at 32.2, now I'm looking at the policy that we have. So in 32.2, what we're hoping that our employee resource groups will achieve, and you see the letters here, would help the city strengthen the city's ability to recruit a diverse workforce, provide safe and supportive employee networks organized around shared characteristics or interests which help improve working relationships and create a more inclusive and attractive work environment, create an open forum for the exchange of ideas on how to better engage all city residents and provide exceptional services to the public, help foster opportunities for personal and professional development for city employees, empower employees and develop leaders, and then help identify gaps and opportunities in the city's talent acquisition and employee development process. So how would an employee set up an ERG? So I do have in here the application form and the charter template as well. So what an employee would do is they would apply to the HR department. The HR department would look over the application and then we would approve it. And then from there, we would help the employees set up the charter for the group. And then HR would then work with the ERG to make sure that they're following all their guidelines and following our policies. So who is eligible for an ERG? All employees would be eligible for an ERG. And then we just have to make sure that the ERG activities don't conflict with our personnel policies and any state and federal laws and ordinances as well. And the ERGs are not just for, it's not a hobby, it's not just a social group. It has to be to further the city's mission and purpose and help further diversity and inclusion in the city. And then when an employee is at a ERG sponsored activity during the work hours, that will be covered as pay, but when it's outside of the work hours, it's on the employee's own time. So then, like I said, the responsibility of the HR department, let me back up. And I guess in order for an employee to go to an ERG activity, they have to have supervisory approval to do that.
Can you give me an example of an ERG activity?
Sure, so what we put in here, or activity,
Well, yeah, like what would someone do during work hours?
so I think what they do is a certain group of shared characteristics would meet, and they would talk about any concerns or issues they have in the work environment, any ideas they have to improve services, any thoughts they have on different training that they could provide to employees. It's an opportunity for employees to get together informally and talk about the work environment and what the city can do to help improve the services or training or just the work environment for the employees.
Okay, and you were gonna answer, what kind of group? Give me an example.
Yeah.
So the group that we had in the charter was women in STEM, so that's science, technology, engineering, and math. So that would be a certain group where you have women in STEM throughout all departments that would meet. And I think what it helps is you have women in STEM in more than one department. So it kind of breaks down those silos and has employees meeting together and talking about what they do at the city, not just within their department, but within, or I guess with all departments.
Okay, it says in the paperwork that the NRG helps to promote diversity.
Mhm.
How does a group of specific people, women in STEM,
Mhm.
so it can't be men in STEM, I mean, how does this promote diversity?
Yep, so how it works is the group would be women in STEM. That's what it'd be helping to further the goals in helping women in STEM talk to each other. But it's open to every single employee in the city to be in that group. And you need the buy-in from leadership and employees to be in that group, because if you're not listening to what women in STEM are suggesting, then it's really gonna go nowhere. So that's how it fosters diversity. It gives people of a shared goal or characteristic to meet and gives them a forum to talk about it, but then it allows the leadership to buy in and listen to their suggestions. Because right now, we don't really have a women in STEM group to meet and talk about it. Could they do it on their own time? They could. But this kind of formalizes a system where people of a certain characteristic or idea can meet in groups, talk about their suggestions, and then leadership can listen and give them feedback on it.
But is this a real group that really wants to have a charter?
I don't know.
Or is this just a sample?
Example.
It's a sample, yeah.
And it's not gonna interfere with bargaining units, or, I mean, if they have ideas, anything like that, they have to either A, go to the bargaining unit, or if they don't fall within a bargaining unit, then they could go to management with their ideas.
So the way that I've looked at this now is I think that police and fire and transit would be open to having an employee resource group. Whether that that need to be bargained or not. I think it's just good to have employee resource groups throughout all of our departments. So how does it, increase diversity? I think for candidates as well, diverse candidates, it's good for them to know that we might have an employee resource group that they can join to provide resources for them when they get within the city.
So this is kind of a thing. I've never heard of it. I've been out of education now for 4 years, but so this is a thing that.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
private organizations
Okay.
have ERGs. It's very prominent in
It is.
in the private sector. And then Milwaukee also has an employee resource group as well, or many of them. And we've talked to them about their policies, and I've worked off their policies on putting this together.
Is it attractive to millennials? Is that a specific group that might, or not so much? It doesn't really have to do with age ranges, it's more of culture?
Yeah, I think it's more about
or
culture.
education, like STEM, or, Celestine?
You can join, yeah.
Thank you. Celestine Jeffries, Chief of Staff.
And Celso,
So-
you want to come up so we get you?
On the camera.
On the camera.
Thank you.
So it is open to employees who want to form a group. And it is very much, isn't the staff, the senior staff telling employees what group they should form, but rather what groups employees feel called to form. And when we talk about diversity, we talk about it very broadly. And so that includes many, many different kinds of, categories by which someone would identify. Or someone in a life circumstance. So I can give you another employee resource group potential. Once again, we don't know if people are interested in doing that here in the city, but caregivers, right? So some people
Sure.
in the middle of their lives find themselves being
Sandwich.
caregivers for their parents.
Mhm.
And that could be an employee resource group, middle-aged caregivers of aging parents.
It could be a veterans group. Something
Could
like
be a
that.
veterans group,
Mhm.
exactly, right. And it's open to everyone. I think the key thing that Director Faulds had said is that it's open to everyone.
What do we do with the employee that joins 10 ERGs?
Yep, that's a very good question.
Yeah.
So I think what we need to do as the supervisors and senior staff is make sure that, I think someone could join 10. I don't know if we're ever gonna get to 10, but then it cannot conflict with your work responsibilities. So let's just say you join 2 or 3 or something like that. We would think that the meetings would be probably once a month. So if you're in 3 groups, maybe you don't go to 3 every single month, and maybe rotate and it's quarterly or something like that.
Okay.
So that's how we would handle that. We just make sure it doesn't conflict with the work responsibilities. And I think we will encourage them to have meetings, during break times or around the lunch hour or something like that, because we want the dialogue to be with the supervisor and the employees. What can we do to make sure it's not conflicting with work responsibilities or just minimizing how much it's affecting? And we do also have, like our benefits committee, we have safety committees. We do have a lot of committees that we do meet during work hours, and I think this would be part of those.
Okay. Any other
Okay.
questions?
So I think what we were hoping for was that we would have this start in January 1st. And that would give us time to educate our employees and educate supervisors on how to work with the RGs. And then also to let you know is that human resources for the budget, we will be reclassing one of our positions. We have 2 HR assistant positions. We just filled one. The second HR assistant position will reclass to a diversity and inclusion coordinator. That person would oversee RGs, would be all they do. They also do other strategies in improving diversity and inclusion. And then we would also be asking for about some seed money for the ERGs in the budget time for you guys to look at as well, which would be about $1,500.
Motion?
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Now we're on to item 5. We're here for consideration with possible action on the Officer Matthew Lynch regarding the attendance of canine training issued July 19th, 2019. This grievance is before the Personnel Committee meeting at this time upon the mutual agreement of the parties for extensions of time rather than at the meeting that was first available after filing. This is a quasi-judicial matter. It is the goal of the Personnel Committee to provide and conduct a hearing that is both fair in form, appearance, and substance. To ensure that this hearing satisfies these goals, each member of the Personnel Committee please confirm the following by stating, "I confirm." I do not have an interest or conflict of interest in this matter.
I confirm.
I confirm.
I confirm. I have not received any communication from any person or party about this matter.
I
I
confirm.
confirm.
A decision will be made based upon the labor agreement between the City of Green Bay and the Green Bay Professional Police Association, in effect as of the date of the event complained thereof. The Personnel Committee will either announce its decision tonight or take the matter under advisement and have a decision at the next committee meeting. The Personnel Committee will make findings of fact and conclusions of law based upon the record before it. At this time, the following materials have been submitted into the record. Number one is a letter from the GVPPA dated August 7th, 2019. Two, the original grievance number 2019-003 identified as Green Bay Professional Police Association Contract Violation Information Form dated August 7th, 2019, and attached documentation. Number three is a grievance response number 2019-003 from Chief Andrew Smith dated May 30th, 2019. Number four is a letter from HR Director Joseph Falls to Officer Matthew Lynch dated July 19th, 2019. And lastly, a letter from Attorney John Cermelli, I'm sorry, to the Personnel Committee dated October 3rd, 2019. Pursuant to Section 3.8.3 of the Labor Agreement, the committee may decide whether to hold a fact-finding hearing. As neither party has requested a fact-finding hearing, the committee will consider as evidence only the materials which have been submitted into the record. No testimony or further evidence will be considered, but both parties will be permitted to make arguments in support of the written submissions. Does either party wish to make arguments in support of the written submissions?
No, this time.
City?
We don't either.
No?
And I just want to clarify, I think there was there also a letter from the city and from myself on October 4th? It's in the packet.
If it's in the packet, we can
It's in
add
the-
it onto there. I just, when I was going through it, I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's in the packet that you do have.
All right, I'm going to make an amendment to the statement, then number 6, there's a letter dated
October 4th.
October 4th from whom to whom?
From HR Director Joe Falls to the Personnel Committee.
Okay.
Just one correction, it looks like it's actually dated October 1st.
There's
There's an October 1st one.
There's a first
I saw
and a
the fourth.
fourth.
There's two. Maybe it's twos and twos.
Can you just double check it's in the packet?
I found it, October 4th is the very last one.
Mhm.
Yep, it's in there.
All right, I'm going to ask the party, you guys have any concerns or questions about these two other letters that are being added?
I was aware that there was an additional letter from Director Falls that was added in response to Attorney Cermelli's email. I was not aware that there was two. I guess I'm.
So I did send an email to Phil, and, Attorney Cermelli, and Chief Smith, that it was in response to Attorney Cermelli's letter.
So there's one response, correct?
One response, that's it. Yep.
Okay. All right, so neither party wants to make any arguments as far as the written submissions. Does any member of the Personnel Committee have any questions for either party? If you do, go ahead.
Okay. So this was really difficult for, because, I mean, I have a lot of questions, I guess, but I tried to frame this up so that I wasn't looking at like a canine unit. Okay, I was thinking, first I thought, well, okay, if there was one less,
Session?
No,
No.
this is open session.
okay, if there's one, say there was one less quadrant in Green Bay, say all of a sudden a high school, middle school, the elementary schools all combined, they were all shut down. And we had 10 SROs, and then we didn't need SROs anymore in that quadrant. But then I thought that was a bad one, because we need SROs everywhere, so I just decided not to use that. So then I thought, okay, I'm not being facetious here, but hear me out. We no longer had horses. but might someday get some more horses. We have an equestrian unit right now, right? We do have an equestrian unit. Would they still train? Okay, and these are maybe hypothetical, not that you have to answer them, but I was trying to kind of like, would they still train if we didn't have horses? Would they drive the vehicle and horse trailer to the training? I was kind of extrapolating on why would you drive the car, the canine car, to the training? Because you maybe, or if we no longer had a boat or access to a boat, would the dive team drive the boat and trailer to, no boat on the trailer to training? I mean, that part was kind of easier for me to think, why would you take the car if you didn't have a dog in it? So, are they allowed to answer questions, or am I just?
Do you want to clarify, are you asking for the vehicle to stay with the officer?
I struck that. from the
Okay,
first
so
page.
that's.
Oh, that's gone
That's
now.
not, I did respond to that, but that's no longer an issue. The issue now is
Okay.
simply on attending training.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, in that case, handlers have expensive training, because I've looked at the training a little bit, not around canines and support dogs. And so it's expensive training, it's probably good training. So it makes sense that they train monthly to keep their skills up. A lot's been invested in the officers' training. If this officer gets a dog again, will he lose his skills? Is it less costly to keep him trained than to start over with training? Or would he have to start over with training because it's a new canine? Who wants to answer that question? That group of questions. I can say them again.
Should we try that? All right, so Phil Scanlon for the Police Association of the Grievant, Officer Lynch here.
And Phil, sorry, you want to come up, so just so we catch you on camera. Thank you for doing that.
All right, that was kind of this is a long way to get to that question, so I'll answer it the best I can. We recognize as an association that Officer Lynch has been a canine handler for 9 years.
Okay.
So the city's invested a lot of money in his training over the course of that time. He's handled 2 dogs. The second dog he handled prior to that dog's passing, prior to the dog retiring, had 3 other handlers, is that correct?
Correct.
Had 3 other handlers. So he's the fourth handler to handle that dog. So not only has he had all that prerequisite training, but he's also been trained in handling dogs that had previously belonged to other handlers. And that's part of the association's point, is that the department and the city has invested this money in his training. We all know that police work is a dangerous job. We know that tomorrow, any one of our department's 6 previous canine handlers could fall ill, could have a car accident, could be assaulted or injured on duty, could just decide to say, you know, my family circumstances have changed, I no longer want to be a canine handler. And now we'll have a dog that the city's invested a lot of money in. We'll have a handler that has not been allowed to train. And the concern is, why not? The association position is actually that the department is a little bit remiss to not let him train. They've invested a lot of money in that training. And we have all seen lately, in the past 6 months, the value of our police dogs. Our police dogs save citizens' lives. They save our officers' lives. And I understand the department has an obligation to be frugal. I understand that. I understand that budgets are tough. But it's the association's position that this is a very important unit within our department for our rank and file and for the citizens that we serve. We also recognize that the department has invested a lot of money in continuing this training, and to put it on hold, assuming that nothing will happen to the current handlers or the current dogs in the meantime, I think is a risk that the association doesn't agree with. And I also think the language is clear in the grievance that it says that these canine units shall train as a unit. There's no exception in the contract for whether or not the handler has a dog or not at that time. So I don't know if that specifically answers your question. Officer Lynch can probably, or any of these other canine handlers that are present, might be able to address some of the diminished skill sets that they might incur if they no longer train for a 1 month, 3 month, 5 months, 6 months. I'm not a canine handler, I can't speak to that. I can speak.
That was kind of a follow-up question as
Yeah.
you spoke. I wondered how quickly does one lose their skills, and then what dog would he train with? What canine?
I can tell you this, that having worked with canine handlers and having worked with the Officer Lynch on the SWAT team, who had canine on the SWAT team, we understand that these canines are pack creatures. We understand that the more that we train with them as a SWAT team, and we understand, and they can testify as well, that the more these handlers train with these dogs as a unit in whole, these dogs become familiar with their handlers, they become familiar with the law enforcement officers and partners in their pack, and increase their effectiveness, and it increases their potential, it decreases their potential of biting them, or their ability to work with them. Officer Lynch, I can answer for Officer Lynch, or he can come up and tell you that in the event of an emergency, another officer was unable to perform his dog, Officer Lynch would be able to work with that dog based on his training and experience. I think-
Has that ever happened? Has there ever been a time when a sub-handler was needed? Like in the past 2 years, 5 years, ever?
Yes, Officer Saltman was injured for some time, and he was not working his dog at that time.
So who
So who took his dog?
Nobody did,
So you didn't have a sub-handler?
not at that
Because
time.
because you all had your own dogs?
Yeah, everybody else had a
Everybody
dog
else
other
had a
than
dog.
Myself.
I'll come back if needed.
Okay. Did you guys want to respond to that?
Yeah.
Andrew Smith, Chief Police. A couple points. If we eliminated our horses, we certainly will not continue to train as a horse unit. We could have the unit suspend their operations, but they certainly wouldn't go to the arena, they certainly wouldn't train, to answer your first question. Second of all, dogs are, and I completely agree, a tremendous asset for our city. Love having dogs, love canines, love canine handlers. I think they do a great job while they're out there. I wish we could have more dogs out there, but our budget just won't allow it. We just don't have the room to have 7 canines right now. Down the road, if we do, we'd certainly like to increase the number of canines. But it doesn't make sense to me, and I don't think it makes sense to the taxpayers, to have somebody down there watching other guys with their dogs train other guys' dogs. If we decide to get another canine, and that goes to Officer Lynch, then he will certainly be afforded all the training he needs to get caught up in any training that has lapsed or any training that he doesn't feel comfortable with leading up to him getting that dog and being certified in the field. And that we do that for everybody whenever they get a new dog. They spend many weeks training with that dog off-site, and then more training back on-site before they are comfortable and they are certified to go out and work with that dog.
So the fiscal portion of it was 17 hours a month of training? Is that what I read? 17 hours a month?
17 hours a month, yeah, they train monthly.
So, and that could be overtime pay too, right? Or do they're not working whatever other job they'd be doing?
Right, my understanding is that time they are working, doing their training, not on overtime, but it's a regular duty day, and they would otherwise be out in the field working. So he will spend 17 hours a month at the training facility with the other officers that are training their dogs, instead of being out on patrol in the field, where I would prefer him to be.
And would he be working with a dog though? Would they share their dogs with him?
Well, each dog has its own handler. There may be times when he could substitute. We do have a program that allows people to become a canine decoy. It's new part of the contract. Should he desire to, he could apply to become a canine decoy, and then as needed, he would go and work with the dogs, being the decoy for the dogs that are there in their training. It's something we worked out in the last contract agreement. Right now, we don't have any canine decoys. I don't know if he's got an interest in doing that, but that's certainly something that's available to him or anyone else that wants to become a canine decoy.
So it comes down to the fiscal responsibility. The argument being, right, or is there more to it? I mean, that it's costing us 17 hours of not having a police officer working at whatever else they might be doing, rather than, and then they pay the dogs instead,
Correct.
where they wouldn't be really doing, they don't have their own dog.
They don't have a dog, so there's no dog to be training with. If they would substitute for someone else's dog, that's certainly not something that we do. But to me, it doesn't make sense to tell the taxpayers, I got a guy watching other guys train 17 hours a week, when I would prefer him, and I think every taxpayer here would prefer him to be in the field working, handling radio calls, especially when we're down 17 officers as we are in the city right now. 17 police officers positions are vacant today in Green Bay, and I just can't afford to send someone to training to watch other guys train.
And then just to add to that, I think that's a big portion of it, but there's nothing in the contract that talks about what happens when a canine is retired. And I believe the union has not disputed that we have the right to determine to add a dog or not add a dog. And we've decided that we're not going to going forward. So it's our management right that we don't believe that someone should be training without a canine.
And in the past, we've
That's
had-
a question I want to follow up on later on.
In the past, we've had several officers who, as canines have died, or they wouldn't, their canines were not continuing the program. They did not continue to go to training. They went and went back to the field and did patrol duties.
Oh, this has happened
Correct.
before?
Several times.
Have those officers ever then gotten a canine later on? Ever?
No, no, they've retired, several of them retired, and one of them has got a detective position now.
How come you just don't eliminate the position?
Yeah.
Well, it's a specialty unit assignment, and we cannot remove, by the contract, we can't remove anybody from a specialty unit assignment without cause. And losing your canine or having your canine die and not being able to replace that canine is not cause to remove them from a specialty unit assignment.
So if the city decided due to fiscal or whatever reason to reduce the canine unit to one canine, we could potentially have 6
Seven.
officers attending training with no dogs.
Correct.
Could I, okay, can I speak to Officer Lynch?
Yeah, you speak to her.
So Officer Lynch,
Yes.
why do you want to do this?
This is what my whole career kind of came to. This is what I always wanted to be. I was a canine handler. So I've been there 25 years now. And this is one of the more important things that, to me, I'd like to end my career as being a canine handler. And I think it's a very important part of the department. And I have more experience than anybody else does on the department as far as handling canines.
But you don't have one right now. So why do you want to do this? Why do you want to go to the?
I can
these
help the
trainings?
other canine handlers with their dogs. I won't be there watching. I'll be there helping to train. With all my experience from the past, problems will occur with these dogs, and since I have the most experience, I can help work through these problems.
So if they reduce the canine unit by one more, should we tell that officer that he can then attend training too and give his experience? Or would we have to make a decision? I mean, I understand you've got a lot of experience. I understand this is how you want to end your career, but I guess the question I would also ask out here is what if one of the canine dogs dies tomorrow? If we replace it, who gets the replacement dog? Officer Lynch or the officer?
It makes sense, it
who-
would go to the senior person, and so that would be Officer Lynch. Senior person that's still part of the unit, and that would be Officer Lynch.
And how much training did you have to go through, Matt, before, when you got your dog the first time?
The first dog I had 6 weeks of training.
And what do they do now for training for a new officer getting a dog?
You'd have to talk to one of the new officers. They went to a different vendor right now. I didn't go through that vendor.
What do we-
But you had 4 dogs,
No, I had 2 dogs.
2 dogs. So
Well,
how
no,
much
My
training did
last
you go
dog
through?
had 4 handlers.
Oh, okay, so how much training did you go through for the second dog? Did you go through 6 weeks again?
No, I did not, because
Because what?
I got another dog and I'm an experienced handler that they didn't decide, they said you did not have to go to school. You already have been through that.
So you still would have a lot of skills.
Yes.
So the purpose of going to the training is for you to get training, not necessarily to be helping the other handlers, because that's not the purpose of the training. Purpose is for you to do training. So I don't know what will you be getting out of this training? You really have a lot of experience.
Yes, I do. I can help the other handlers if
I
problems
get it, but
arise.
that's not the purpose for you being in. I mean, that, for me, that doesn't fit into what I'm thinking, oh, I don't want you to lose your skills, or, you know, we've invested a lot in this guy, I don't want him to lose his skills, he should keep these skills, but it seems like you have the skills, and that you don't really need the additional training. You're not even gonna be, you're gonna be helping, not really getting trained.
With anything else, if you don't continue your skills, I think you lose them.
Well,
Also,
you're
they're
right.
perishable.
You're right.
So I think that would be an important factor too.
questions for Officer Lynch? All right, thanks, man.
Yep.
Any other questions?
So that was answered then.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, contract says they can't be removed unless for cause. Not having a dog is not cause. If another dog dies tomorrow, Matt would be able to bid for it by seniority, or he would get it by seniority.
You could get it. It's my
So
understanding. you
if he
could get it.
doesn't train for a year and another dog dies, okay, say the city prevails, he doesn't train for a year and another dog dies
Or retires.
or
You don't have to
retires,
die.
who would get the dog? Would you post it or would he have automatic bid?
He would have the first option to get that dog. We would purchase a dog or make arrangements to purchase a dog. He would then begin training with the canine unit until his dog is ready to be picked up. He would go to the vendor, he would receive training on-site from the vendor, then we'd come back here, we'd make sure that everything was squared away and he was comfortable and that he was certified, and then we would put him out in the field and work.
And then that other officer whose dog was retired would have to wait in the wings until another dog left?
Correct.
Or until we added to the corps?
Correct.
Or unless we set a precedent, he could go to training.
Right, well, I'm just saying if the city prevailed.
Right.
Okay. So then my question for the city is, what do you cite that you believe gives you cause to say we don't have to follow a contract in this case?
So I think when they stated in there that it's unambiguous, the language, and I know they stated, it kind of, there was some past practice arguments made before, but they say that when it's unambiguous language, you can't look at past practice, which, I've made that argument to the committee a few years ago, and I agree with that. But I think when you look at the language where it says that canine officer shall be responsible for 17 hours of maintenance training per month, I think when we look at canine officer, I think you assume a canine officer has a canine when you think of that. And then also the language does not talk about what happens when a canine retires. So I think because it doesn't talk about what happens when a canine retires, the city can determine whether or not to fill that canine. We've decided not to. And in the past, when we haven't filled a canine, that officer was not able to go to training. So it's our management right to say when someone doesn't have a canine, they are not going to continue to go to training, but once we get a canine, that person's up next.
So this actually has happened before and no one objected.
So what's happened, and the union can correct me if I'm wrong here, when we are replacing, so let's say a canine retires.
Okay.
We then say we're gonna replace that canine.
Okay.
We allow the person to go because we knew the canine was gonna be replaced.
Okay.
But when we knew we were not gonna replace a canine, we did not allow the person to go to training.
So that's actually happened before.
Yes.
But why wasn't there any objection before?
I think it's because the person did not want to continue to go to training. The person may not want to be part of the canine unit or a canine officer anymore. That's my guess.
Okay.
Because I think Officer Lynch wants to continue to be a canine officer. And we've said he is part of the canine unit. He could be a canine decoy, and he's up next if the canine is purchased. So that's why he's still part of the unit. We just don't think that the contract enforces us to make the person go, or allow the person to go to training, and we think that we have the right to determine to replace the dog or not.
And what are the parameters for a decoy? Do they attend the 17 hours of training a month?
Have to jump in on here. That was something that we worked out in the last contract, and it's a position that they would apply for, and then we'd use them as they're needed. They wouldn't be there for every part.
Do you mind
of
coming up
the
to the podium?
Yeah.
Sorry. It's for the camera.
Sure. So, in the last contract, we worked out because there may be times when they need a canine decoy, someone to go and hide and let the canine find this particular person. We thought that it would be best if that person had a certain amount of training before they became a canine decoy, so that's just not a random officer out there. We got something in the contract last time around that would allow us to advertise for and people put in to become a canine decoy, and then as they are needed, they would be able to go out and act as a decoy for the canine unit that's out there. That's a position that is still open. No one has come forward that wanted to be a part of it. Correct.
We haven't posted it yet.
It hasn't been
Oh,
posted.
I was gonna say, I can understand that why we get this, but,
How much does an officer get per hour, like on average? I mean, how much money are we talking about here? 17 hours a month times,
$35 an hour would be a
Yeah,
ballpark?
that depends on their wage.
right, but let's just give me a number. I'll take one from you. Give me a number.
I imagine that Officer Lynch's spec 2 is probably right around with shift differential of $39, $40 an hour.
Okay, I'll put it 40. Times 12 months.
Some of which would be on duty time already, be part of the salary.
But it's still,
But it wouldn't be.
it's still a
Can I-
cost.
can I-
Yes,
Sure,
yes,
come on.
come on up. $8,160, so we're talking about that. That just, I mean, that gives me a little parameter there.
If I could make just a couple comments, and I'll keep it brief. And I understand we're getting, we're kind of getting a wide scope here, and I think on a relatively narrow topic. For starters, there's been some discussion on whether dogs, handlers had other dogs die or retire and stop training. To their knowledge, that's not happened. They're all allowed to continue training when their dogs were down. I understand the difference here, that there's no dog that's happened. I understand that there is a little bit of apples and oranges to that. But I will say this, in regards to the management's rights, the contract for the Green Bay Police Association is very broad, but does specifically address that all maintenance training is handled by the training, or by the K-9 unit. It specifically addresses that. The city never bargained any exception to this. We recently addressed the K-9's contract in the last contract. There was no bargained exception for that made. If a dog goes down, you don't attend training, the city saves the money. That exception was never made. And because that provision is broad, but specifically addresses that all members of the K-9 unit train together when feasible, we would opine that he's still a member of the K-9 unit, in good standing. He's a member of the K-9 unit. He should attend training. You know, I get that the association and management will disagree sometimes, oftentimes when it comes to money. We understand that. But the language on this, we would like to go back to the language. Commander Wark himself in an email that, Matt Lynch, and the chief testified, Matt Lynch is a member of the K-9 unit in good training. The language says that all members of the K-9 unit train together. It is not specifically itemized that when a dog is not there, he's not available, he doesn't attend. That happens on any given day. Dogs get hurt, dogs get sick. We don't not let the officer attend training at that time because the dog's not available at that time. There's no specific limitation to that. Although we brought it out to a lot of arguments, I would really respectfully ask that you address the language itself, that we understand that the city wants to save money. We understand that the personnel committee might have questions about our wages and our hours and how much money that saves directly. But this is addressed in our contract. And it does say specifically that all K-9 handlers will train together as a unit. Matt Lynch is a K-9 handler. His dog is down, his dog was retired by the city. He is still a K-9 handler with the city in good standing. So, thank you.
All right, Phil, just a question.
Sorry.
So what do we, who represent the taxpayers, we don't necessarily care about a contract, what do we tell them about that cost? That there's not an officer on the road working traffic, handling calls for service, that potentially is working overtime, because not all the training is on their workday, is it?
Okay, 2 points. One, it's not overtime. The officers in the K-9 unit are on a 5-3 work schedule. So as the calendar year rolls on, some of their training is on their work time, and they're pulled from the shift
Okay.
when feasible. So the department, I would imagine, could make an argument if there's safety staffing issues, they could make an argument that may be feasible that they still stay on the road,
Okay.
right? But some of that training falls on their days off, which does not affect the staffing of the road, does not affect the amount of officers on the road, and the compensation is straight time pay, it's not overtime,
Okay.
which is agreed to by the city. And I would hope that, although taxpayers might not be happy that we have a contract with the city, I think the city agreed in good faith with our association on this contract in negotiations, and we'd ask that you recognize our contract.
In the management rights?
The management rights, our opinion on that, in regards to that, is that there is specifically an article regarding canines, and although it's broad, it's addressed. So I think we would opine that management's rights does not pertain to this, because it says in the article that all canine handlers will train together as a unit when feasible.
Okay. All right, thanks. Are there any other questions for either party?
Does anyone else want to say anything?
Okay. All right, I will now entertain a motion to go into closed session so we can deliberate.
Motion to go into closed session?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we need to read
The closed session.
Yep. Okay, consideration with possible action on the grievance filed by Officer Matt Lynch regarding the attendance of canine training issued July 9th. No, wait, hang on.
I got it.
Yeah, go
The
ahead.
committee may convene in closed session pursuant to 19.85 sub 1A Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of deliberating concerning a case which was the subject of any judicial or quasi-judicial trial or hearing before the governmental body. The committee may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to 19.85 sub 2 Wisconsin statutes to report any actions taken during closed session and to consider all other matters on the agenda.
That's it?
That's it.
Would you guys take a vote on that, or do you guys?
I thought we did.
Oh, you did?
We did, we did.
All right, so we're going to have to ask everyone to leave while we can. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to go back in
Hold on,
session.
hold
Oh,
on.
Hang on, stand by. Did it freeze?
I'm glad I didn't touch it.
It's okay if it doesn't work.
No, it's fine. We were off so long that it just powered up. We're good.
Move that we go back into regular order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. All right, what we're doing is we're taking this under advisement.
I can make that motion.
Do we?
Yep.
Okay, go
That would be
ahead.
the proper procedure.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to move that we take this under advisement.
I will second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'm sorry to put this off, guys, but this is going to be put off till the next meeting on November 12th. There's some stuff that we're going to have staff look up for us to advise us on, because it's just one of those things. So it's not easy to come up with a decision on this one. So that's what we're going to do. All right? All right, thank you very much. All right, public hearings, nothing informational.
Thank you.
Yep, take care.
Yes, you do have the report for personnel actions in there, and then also the next meeting's on the 29th for the joint finance personnel meeting.
Any
This is-
questions?
Did you state that we were taking that up under the November 12th meeting?
Yeah, he
Yeah,
said
okay,
November
okay.
12th.
Mhm.
No. Should I, move to adjourn? Okay,
Yes.
move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's go outside and warm up.
Oh my God, it's so cold.
Right?
You're fine.